that it's never too late to learn how to do this and find the love of your life. Susan offers a complimentary 1-hour private telephone session so that everyone can enjoy a wonderful future and awesome relationships. Now, Susan has proven that it only takes one partner to generate this deep level of joy, passion, and love. And I know that many of you watching will want to learn how, so I'm thrilled that tonight's show is about the gift of intimacy that you can bring to your relationship, and it's never too late if you love one another to turn your life around. Oh, that's thrilling, wonderful.
True.
Yes, it is. And Susan, I'm really excited because we have so many questions for you to share with us how to go about achieving this. So my first question for you is, why is it so important to learn to create intimacy, and what difference will it make, for example, if, let's say, in a divorce situation rate with all of the challenging relationships?
First of all, the reason that people get divorced is obviously they don't have a deep and joyous level of intimacy, period. But more important and more tragic is the large percentage of married people who are staying together either for the children or for money, or it's too much trouble, or they're afraid of divorce or whatever, but they are also not enjoying a deep level of joyous intimacy. And intimacy is whatever it means to you. I'm not telling you that it has to include mind, body, and spirit. It doesn't have to include, weekends under the covers, though it may. So intimacy is intimacy, and it could be any one of 50 things that you and your partner agree that it is. So you have all the freedom in the world with that.
Wonderful. That's very encouraging. Now, what is the key to a truly intimate and loving relationship?
You have to be able to bring yourself to peace before communicating, and that's self-empathy. And you have to be able to bring your partner to peace. Thank you, Fred, and that's empathy. If you don't learn this 6-part conversation, you will not be able to give the gift of intimacy to your partner. And if you learn this 6-part conversation, you will be able to give this gift of intimacy to everyone and anyone for the rest of your life. And of course, I teach this. So you can learn some part of it in the free 1-hour telephone session I do. So that's an easy way in. But you have to be peaceful and calm when you communicate. And when that other person doesn't know anything about this, you have to bring them to peace. When you accomplish that, you have given the gift of intimacy to your relationship.
Very powerful. What is your Tantric Lock program, and what are the benefits?
Well, the definition of a couple is when two merge into one. So that's a couple. Now, you don't know how to do that. The reason that people get divorced is they never did that. Even if they've been married for 30 or 40 years, they never did that. So that's why one of them wakes up one morning and says, I've had enough. And that person was presumably suffering for a very long time. Because as I tell anyone who calls me to talk about that scenario where a partner is asked for a divorce or a partner has moved into the other bedroom or any of that, I say, look back a year. What happened a year ago? How did you know? Well, I know this because I've had the privilege of working with so many of you, and you have the same scenario, and I've also been through it. In my own life, I've lived through it. So two merging into one is what tonight's show is about, and that's what I'm going to teach you guys to do.
I would really guess that some of the benefits are more trust, more love, and what are some of the other benefits?
Well, first of all, greater mental health, greater physical well-being, greater financial stability, inner peace, you name it. And obviously, the biggest bonus of all, if you're really going on the, intimacy roller coaster to a happy conclusion, you're going to have fabulous sex. So, is there any reason not to learn how to do this? I would hope not. I would hope that you're now really interested in what we're saying and you're really wondering, okay, how fast can I get it and where can I get it?
Absolutely. So how can someone really create this deeply intimate relationship?
Well, in my Tantric Lock coaching training, what I teach you to do is first connect to yourself in a very different way. You have to approach your partner with your own self-confidence, with your own enthusiasm, with your own joy, with your own affection intact. You can't go from a dark place and connect to your partner and expect that anything great is going to come out of it. So you are basically building your vibrational state. You are evolving, because that's what I teach. So you've got to evolve. As you evolve, it's true that sometimes your partner will disappear because your energy is so strong and so high and so joyous that they don't want any part of it. But that's not your real partner then. That's not someone you want to stay with. If that's the scenario, then of course you've got to now magnetize the partner that is the right match for you, the right balance for you. Now let's say that your partner says, oh, he's going to get with the program. He or she sees that you're coming from a different place. You're full of joy, you're full of excitement, you're sexy, you're in the mood, your business is going better, your health is improved. Well, that partner, you'd hope that partner would wake up and say, hey, I don't know what you did, but I want to learn this too. And that's when you're going to teach them the 6-part conversation. You're going to teach them, and depending on their needs, depending on their character, thank you, Fred, you're going to be able to motivate them to learn how to be peaceful. Self-empathy is a trick that works every time. Then you're going to teach them how to empathize with you, because that's what you want to hear. You want to hear empathetic language. If you have time, I mean, if somebody's on the edge of the cliff, you're going to pull them. You're not going to be sweet and talk a lot. But if you're living with somebody, if you're married to someone, if they're your partner, you have plenty of time to do this in a peaceful, cooperative way. Thanks.
That sounds like the ultimate relationship. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So which area of a relationship is the most challenging and requires most skills?
You know, the emotional connection that is the preliminary to great sex is most complicated for most people. For some people, stopping to be intimate and connecting before sex is the big challenge, because they just want to go straight to sex. And great sex for them doesn't need all this emotional stuff. For others, it's being able to get their emotional needs met in a reasonable period of time for their partner. So typically it's the woman who wants lots more emotional connection and the man who wants a lot more sex, but this is not like color blindness, so it's not a sexually linked issue. It's a left brain issue or a right brain issue. Thank you, Fred. So if you look at this map, you'll see that people who are very left brain are going to want to get it done. If you're talking about sex, they're going to want to start, they're going to want to get to the middle, and they're even going to want to finish pretty quickly, because it's all about getting it done. And then people who are very right-brained, they want to be much more emotional about it. They want to just be more relaxed. They want to let it flow. They want to take their time. They want to stay in the eternal now. You got it. So it's a completely, completely different experience. You've got to figure out which is your partner and which is you, and how are you going to make this work.
Nice, that understanding and empathy. Which part of intimacy would you say is the most difficult for most people?
I believe you just asked that. No?
Well, my goodness. It was so exciting.
Can I come up with another answer? No, that was the answer.
Okay, moving forward. What would you recommend a couple do before, let's say, they take the relationship to the next level and become intimate?
And you see how well we get along, because that mistake could have been the way I wrote those questions. So we'll find out later in a peaceful and cooperative way, because Gigi and I have not had an argument in 10 years. Okay, so ask me that question again that I need to answer.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're having fun now.
That's right. This is like a TV comedy show.
Now, I'm curious what you would recommend before a couple, what would they do before they take their relationship?
Got it.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. So you've got to master what I just described. Because if you don't, one of you gets annoyed and you don't know what to do about it. And then the other next day or even the same time, the other one gets annoyed and your partner doesn't know what to do about it. And that's what your life is going to look like. And that's called hell, right? Hell, according to the author C.S. Lewis, is where each person lives in an individual dwelling. And over time, the dwellings get further and further apart from each other. So that's really it. That's what we're talking about here. So one of you, and since you're watching this, it's you, one of you has to learn how to calm yourself down no matter what, relax, get peaceful, then look to see what's gone sideways with your partner, calm your partner down, make it okay. And in fact, you just saw a little demonstration of that with the questions, right? It's the kind of thing, most of the stuff that people ruin their marriages about are not even as important as this, which is in the middle of a live TV show, right? Most things are infinitesimal, picayune issues, and there are more marriages that broke up over somebody not putting the cap on the toothpaste than you would ever believe. I told you how many times. Don't put your glass in the sink, put it in the dishwasher. That doesn't work. You have to motivate your partner. Bob, it would make life so easy for me if you would be willing to rinse your glass and put it right in the dishwasher. I don't mind doing the dishes at home. I'm happy to do it. And if you'd be willing to just rinse the thing and put it right in the dishwasher, you would give me 2 extra hours a week. And I would really be grateful. Would you be willing to do that, Bob? Well, he probably would say yes, and you may have to remind him because you have to create a new habit. And there are a lot of ways that I would teach you to do that.
Thank you, Susan. Instead of playing that blame and shame, right, wrong game, I love being able to have these skills and move forward.
Yeah. To something that's pleasant, right?
Yes.
Instead of something that's miserable, and then it becomes more miserable, and then it becomes most miserable, and then it becomes Susan's mediating your divorce. So you have a choice. Susan can mediate the Tantric Lock. Susan can mediate your marriage. Susan can do that. Or Susan can really help you from falling over the edge of the cliff and mediate your divorce. But the choice is up to you.
There you go. We know we want happiness. So ultimately, yes, we want to get this. It's taken me a lot of practice, but I'm working on it. Well, now I wonder if you'd be willing to demonstrate what empathy is like when we really want to create real intimacy.
So, Bob, I noticed last night when you came home from work that you seemed to be really, really stressed, as if you just needed to relax and hadn't found a way to do that. And then tonight when you came home from work, it seemed that you were really, just really tense and really worried. And I imagine you'd like something to shift in the relationship you've been having with your boss, because I know that he's not been an easy guy for you to get to know. And I know that you want to keep your job, you love your job. So, am I right? Is that accurate, what I've observed? So that's not about you and Bob, and that's certainly not about your intimate life or your sex life, but this is the emotional intimacy that is essential to any loving relationship.
And of course, we're guessing and seeing what's alive in them in return.
That's right. You're guessing, you're not a psychic. You're not supposed to know.
I wanted to be a psychic.
The Santa Barbara medium. That's it.
So now I can really see why it lets a partner relax and feel safe and feel cared for. So how now can we go even further?
So whatever you get back from Bob when you give him empathy in that way, you're not done. You know, that's not the end of it. If he, shrugs and says, no, everything's fine. How many of us have dated people who say, no, everything's fine? Okay, but that doesn't mean that you've completed your task. Then you don't quiz him, you don't give him more stress. But a couple of days later, a couple of nights later, you're just going to say, well, I was wondering whatever happened with John, because I know you were having some frustration with your coworker John, and you were really hoping that he was going to work a lot harder and help you with your workload. So how's that been going? And you hope that now you get a decent response from Bob. But again, if you've trained Bob over all these years, or Bob's trained you over all these years that he's not going to answer and you're supposed to quit or give up or psychically intuit what's up with him, it may take you 4, 5, 10 empathy moments like this. But don't give up, because eventually Bob will say, oh, I've just got to tell you what's been going on. And that's emotional safety. So when somebody feels safe to tell you what's really alive in them, what's really true for them, when they feel safe, they will tell you. That's the trick.
I like that. That honesty opens the doors. I know, Susan, that you teach about 4 different reactive behaviors that block intimacy. Can you please describe them for us?
So the most popular one on TV these days, as we wind down into who our next president is going to be, is what these Republican guys are doing when they feel triggered. That is the upper left part of the brain, which is judging. Judge Judy does it every minute on TV. I have not watched that much, but I don't think there's a 5-minute period when she's sweet. Maybe I'm wrong. But it's that Judge Judy, Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, boom! You say something to them they don't like, and they are going for your throat. There is no way that you can have a happy, peaceful time if you trigger those 3 people. Judge Judy, Donald Trump, and Ted Cruz. Now, what works with that kind of behavior is empathy. That's the only thing that works. It's the only way Donald Trump's wives, wife number 1 and wife number 3, have been able to stay with him for any period of time. Marla Maples, wife number 2, didn't have any of those skills, and boom, she was out in a very short period of time. Very, very quick. So if you want to have a relationship with somebody who's got a hair-trigger temper and thinks he or she is right, you must learn empathy, you must give them empathy, and you must learn self-empathy to calm yourself before speaking. Then should I do the others as well, the other 3?
That'd be great.
Okay. So then you've got the lower left brain. You've got somebody who's shy and they are going to explain and defend. And if you've ever tried to explain anything to a traffic cop, then you know what a bad idea that was. In fact, if you try to explain and defend yourself to an officer of the law of any kind, you're going to be in trouble. And if you try to do it in a courtroom, that's how people are cited for contempt and carted off to jail, at least in the movies. It doesn't happen so much in real life. But you have to be really careful. Explaining and defending never works. What works? Empathy. Empathy for the person that is making you feel scared and making you want to explain yourself. The lower right brain is all about emotion and, oh my God, you're on a roller coaster and you're crying and screaming and you're laughing and you're throwing dishes and you're threatening and all this crazy, crazy, overly emotional stuff, which never works. And you know, in the old days, I hate to tell you, wives used to get locked up, sometimes permanently, if they behaved that way. That's the really sad tragedy. As recently as the 1890s, women who were very emotional like that, and to some much lesser degree men, because the men had to earn the livings, but those women would be locked up in mental institutions, then called insane asylums. So we haven't come very far, and the truth is, nobody enjoys it when you behave that way. So don't do it. Instead, lots of self-empathy. This is where self-empathy is the lifesaver. Finally, the upper right brain is going to withdraw and stonewall. And I see this in my spiritual clients. They come to a place in our coaching where they need more training. They have a really complicated situation, but they get so triggered because they want to do things the way they want to do them. Autonomy is the marching cry of that part of the brain. And when autonomy is challenged, even to save their lives, their autonomy is challenged, because I'm saying, don't step closer to the cliff, be careful, walk away from the cliff, back up, right? They have this huge need for empathy in order to stop making this withdrawing or stonewalling decision. That's it. Empathy, again, is the secret. And if they have these skills, they'll give themselves self-empathy, and then they will calm themselves down and they won't walk out of the room. And so the bottom line is, if we master self-empathy, any one of these quadrants, if we master empathy, any one of these quadrants, we have a different life.
And a more peaceful, loving heart as well.
And a marriage that lasts.
Oh, that could be important.
Yeah. I mean, if you want a relationship that lasts, you now have seen 100% of the human population described in about 5 minutes, and you have no choice. That's what you got to do.
Thank you for going through that whole quadrant. That was wonderful, Susan. Very enlightening.
Cool.
And a great reminder for me.
Thanks.
Well, now would you be willing to give us an example of judging, and what can we do instead?
So let's say that you are in a relationship with somebody who, which I've been, who is very hypercritical and very smart. So this is not the emotional person. The lower right brain is the emotional person. This is the person who knows everything or thinks they do, right? So just furious. I'm thinking of a particular person. This is a long time ago. So I've made a huge Indian feast. He's coming to my house. This is a boyfriend. He's coming to my house to eat it. My best friend decides she wants to come over and drop something off. And I think, well, stay and you can meet my boyfriend. They've never met. How great. So the dinner's cooked. She's there in the living room. She's having a glass of wine. He comes over. He takes one look at her and he gets triggered. He thinks that I am not paying enough attention to him. I am not respecting that he was supposed to come over at 7:30. And he sees it not as a bonus that he gets to meet my best friend and hang out with another lovely woman. He sees it as a lack of respect, a lack of consideration, and I've now changed the game plan. And I'm telling you, this guy not only freaked out, but he tore out of my apartment. My mother used to say, Michael, go play in traffic. And I don't need to be told that again. If you didn't want me to come at this hour, you shouldn't have invited me. I can see that you're very busy with your friend. I'll going now. Good night. So that's actually a combination of upper left, because his need for timeliness wasn't met, his need for respect wasn't met, and then also the combination with this huge temper and out the door, withdrawing and stonewalling, upper right brain, right? And of course, Joyce and I, and the door closed so fast we were like, what? So Joyce and I sat there for, another half an hour. It's going to take him half an hour to get home anyway. And I called him very quietly and I said, I could see that you were really angry because you had expected that I would be ready to serve dinner at 8 o'clock, and sounds like maybe you were very hungry and you were really wanting my full attention. Do I understand? And he went, okay, and it sounds like what you really needed as far as respect goes is to have me tell you that I would love to have my friend come over and join us for a drink, and even for dinner, and then ask if that would be okay with you. Is that something that would have worked? And eventually, I calmed him down. I put all of the food into Tupperware and got in a cab and went to his house and served him dinner. The dinner was made. I might as well. So that's how you create peace. Now, I didn't have to. I'm not a slave, so be clear that I didn't, I better. No, I wanted to. I spent hours making this meal for him. I wanted him to enjoy it. And I was also curious to see what was really going on. And, this reactivated something in him from his childhood that I didn't even know anything about. There you go.
What an insightful experience, and you stayed with him. You didn't just think, what a jerk, and cut him off.
Well, I did think, what a jerk. Yes. But this is the guy that took me to the Academy Awards. This is the guy who got me enough ski lessons that I became an intermediate skier. This is a guy who, had an incredible lifestyle, and he didn't do this often. So I thought, well, maybe this can go a couple more rounds, and it did.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for sharing that story, Susan.